Welcome back to Blacklit Memory. Tonight, I want to share 10 disturbing road trip encounters that happened in the fading light of November, when the leaves are gone, the cold settles deep, and the roads through Appalachia seem just a little too quiet. Out there, the wind carries more than frost, and they say if you miss a turn out here, don't try to find your way back. Something else might find you first. Before we begin, hit subscribe, leave a like, and tell me where you're listening from, because one of these stories might have passed just a few miles from your door. Thank you for being here. Now then, let's begin. My name's Jesse, 35. I work freelance in road infrastructure, mostly state-level maintenance and backcountry surveys. Last November, I took a solo job that had me driving deep across Appalachia to check a few neglected water points along old mountain routes. The job wasn't glamorous, but I liked the quiet. I packed like I always did: tent, canned food, backup flashlights, and 2 burner phones just in case one lost signal. I'd done this kind of run before. Long days, cold nights, no people. By day 3, I was ahead of schedule. Most pump stations looked abandoned or half buried in vines, just as expected. But then I came across one that didn't match any site on my map. It sat low in a dip between ridges, swallowed halfway by trees and thorns. There was something off about the silence. Not just quiet, still. No birds, no wind, just the soft creak of my truck cooling as I stepped out. The air had that wet iron smell, like something had rotted underground. I walked up to the station and found a rusted steel door with its top hinge bent outward. I shined my flashlight inside. Pure, dark. I only meant to log it and move on. I was already reaching for my notebook when I saw it. A thin smear of blood trailing down from the edge of the door to the concrete stairs below. Faded, but unmistakable. Maybe it was animal blood. Roadkill dragged by a coyote, I told myself. Happens more than you'd think in places like this. Still, I took a photo, just in case. I don't know what made me go in. I should have stayed with the truck. Should have written it off like every other forgotten sight. But I stepped forward and started down the stairs. The beam of my flashlight swept across thick dust and cobwebs. But there was something else. One set of boot prints in the grime, leading down. No return trail. Anybody down there? I called out. I'm with the state. I'm not police. My voice bounced weirdly in the tunnel. Then came a single footstep. Just one. Soft. Like someone shifted weight at the bottom of the stairwell. Then silence again. I stood frozen, breath shallow, listening so hard my ears started to ring. Then something touched the back of my boot. I spun around. It was an old radio. Dead. Unplugged. Sitting where nothing had been 5 seconds before. And then it crackled. Just once. And a voice came through. Low and scratchy. Don't take another step. I backed up fast. Heart pounding. I ran for the door. But as I hit the last stair, the steel slammed shut in front of me. No wind. No lock I could see. Just the weight of something closing me in. I grabbed the handle, yanked hard. It didn't budge. I was sealed inside. From somewhere below, I heard a different sound. Not footsteps. A dragging noise, heavy and deliberate, like something big being hauled across concrete. I didn't call out again. I searched the walls for another exit. Nothing. Just cold brick, pipes, and shadows. Then I found a utility cabinet near the stairs. Inside was a rusted pry bar and a hunting knife with a cracked handle. No signal. No sunlight. No way back. I had one option left. Go deeper. See if there was another exit. I moved down the hall and reached what looked like a large drainage tank. Empty. Bone dry. But the trail of blood I saw earlier ended right at its edge. Like whatever left it had been pulled straight in. I climbed down into the tank. It was the only place I could think to hide. The air inside was damp and cold, and it smelled like rusted metal and mold. I crouched low, gripping the knife tight, trying to steady my breathing. Footsteps returned. Slow, unhurried, moving just beyond the tank walls like someone checking each corner. No voice, no light, just the soft scrape of boot soles across concrete and, every so often, the sound of someone breathing deep through their nose, like they were trying to catch my scent. I held still as long as I could. My legs started to cramp. The metal of the knife felt slippery in my hand. Time crawled. I counted seconds, then lost track. Eventually, the footsteps faded. Not all at once, but gradually, a few steps farther away. Then nothing. I waited even longer, afraid to believe it was over, afraid to move. When I finally pushed myself up to look for a way out, my shoulder brushed something hollow. It echoed faintly. I froze, then ran my hand along the tank floor. A wooden plank, thin and warped, but loose. I pried it up, careful not to make noise. Beneath was a crawl space, a tunnel, barely wide enough to fit through, sloped downward into the dark. I didn't think twice. I slid in head first. The air was colder down there, filled with a smell I can only describe as wet dust and rot. The passage twisted once, then rose back toward the surface. I could feel it, fresh air leaking in from somewhere above. Then something grabbed my ankle. Fingers, thin but strong. I kicked hard, panicked, scraping my back along the narrow walls. My boot connected with something. A face, maybe, and a gasp escaped below me. Half a choke, half a hiss. I dragged myself the last few feet, hands clawing at the dirt. The tunnel spat me out behind the pump station, somewhere downhill and hidden in brush. I tumbled through dead leaves and landed hard on my side. My shirt tore. My knee split open, but I didn't stop to look. I ran. I didn't even care where the truck was. I just needed to put distance between me and that station. When I finally got back to the road, I flagged down the first vehicle I saw. A local hunter with a muddy pickup. He looked at me like I was high or crazy, but he still drove me to the sheriff's station 2 towns over. The police went out to investigate, but they told me there was nothing there. No blood, no footprints, and according to state records, that pump station had been decommissioned nearly 20 years ago. I quit the contract the following week, sold my gear. I never did another backcountry survey again. And now, every time the weather turns cold, something in my knee throbs hard, a sharp, pulsing ache that reminds me of how close something got to pulling me under. And any time I see old stains on concrete, my eyes go straight to the edges, looking for a trail. My name's Lyle. I was 28 when Claire and I packed up the Subaru and decided to drive across Appalachia that first week of November. We called it our pre-honeymoon dirt trip, a half joke to our parents. But the plan was real. Just the two of us. Some film cameras, a couple of folding chairs, and a playlist full of songs our folks used to play on road trips. Claire always insisted on taking the back roads. She said highways were too clean, too disconnected, too fast. You can't smell the dirt if you're doing 70, she'd say, flipping through the map with that half grin I still see when I close my eyes. That first day started fine. Clear skies, soft light coming through the trees, leaves already past peak color but still clinging on. We drove slow, stopping to take photos, eating chips in the car. But somewhere around late afternoon, Claire started getting quiet. Not just tired, different. She stopped answering questions directly, started looking into the rearview mirror more than usual. You keep checking behind us, I said. You see something? I self-cried her. She paused, then shook her head. No, just feels like someone's been behind us for a while. Her voice was calm, but her eyes stayed locked on the mirror. I glanced up. Empty road. Just curves and soft fog and miles of orange-gray woods. Nothing out of the ordinary. Have you ever driven a long stretch of road and suddenly realized the scenery feels familiar in a way that it shouldn't? Like something is repeating. Not quite a loop, but close. And you wonder if you're actually getting anywhere at all. There are roads like that out here. Places where the GPS says you're fine, but your gut starts whispering otherwise. Mile 9 was one of those places. We pulled over at a small turnout near an abandoned lot. There was a single broken cabin set off the road a bit. Faded, gray wood. Windows boarded or missing. Nothing out of place except for one thing. The side mirror on our car reflected a light from inside the cabin. A soft, flickering glow, even though no lights were on. Claire didn't say anything for a full minute. She just stood beside the passenger door, staring into the mirror. I came around to her side, and she whispered, "Lyle, did you see me standing inside that cabin just now?" Ache, in Stelfor. I turned on the flashlight and stepped forward, but the place was empty. Cold. Still. Just one room and a dusty kitchen with a big wall mirror tilted crooked in the back. We didn't go in. Neither of us said it, but we both agreed. No part of our bodies wanted to cross that door. We headed back to the car, but when I looked at the rearview mirror again, something was wrong. It had shifted, angled the wrong way, and what it showed wasn't the turnout or the empty road. It was fog, a thicker kind of fog than what was behind us, and trees that didn't match. When I turned the key, Claire said quietly, "It's still following." "Repans." I looked at her. "What is?" Any take stain was lies. She didn't answer. She pointed toward the mirror, and when I looked, there was nothing there. Just the road. But when I turned my head, actually looked back over my shoulder, there was someone standing on the line behind our car. A dark figure. Still, dead center. I hit the brake. My chest clenched. Then I opened the door and stepped out into the cold. There was no one. Just the sound of leaves and the tick of our engine cooling down. But I could feel it. We both could. Something had shifted. Something was wrong. I got back in the car without saying a word. Claire didn't ask what I saw. She just buckled her seatbelt and kept her eyes on the mirror. I started driving. The road began to curve more than I remembered. Every bend looked like the one before it. Claire glanced at the trees, then back at me. "Are we sure we left that place?" she asked. I wanted to lie, but the truth was, every time we took a turn, I thought I saw the same road sign half hidden by brush, the one with the paint peeling down its center, the same pothole near the edge, like we had never left. Then the lights flickered inside the car. Just once, a quick burst. The dome light blinked on, then off. We hadn't touched it. Claire's hand was in her lap. I kept driving until we reached the mile marker. Mile 9. It leaned slightly toward the ditch, almost like it had been hit once and never fixed. That was when the steering started to feel heavy, like the tires were pushing through mud. I pulled to the side, got out, and checked. Tires looked fine, but the mirror, the rear view, it was off again. It kept angling down, no matter how many times I adjusted it. We finally found a small town a few miles later, not even on the map, just a repair shop, a diner, and a church with no name on its sign. I figured it was as good a place as any to stop. The shop was still open. An old man came out, rubbed his hands on a rag, and asked what the problem was. I pointed at the mirror. "Keep shifting. Keep showing the wrong thing." And the grapply, remetter de timest. He tightened the bracket with a little wrench. "This model's always loose," he said. "Happens more than you'd think." Claire smiled, polite, like nothing had happened. For a while, it felt like we had shaken it. The garage light was warm. The sound of the radio from the office gave the place a heartbeat. We bought coffee, talked to a woman who ran the counter. Everything felt normal again. Then we got back to the car. The rearview mirror had a handprint on it. Small, like a child's, pressed from the inside. I checked every inch of that car. Back seat, trunk, under the seats. I even opened the hood, like maybe I'd find some stupid explanation under there. Nothing. Claire didn't say anything. She handed me the film camera she had been using. I think I took a photo when we stopped, she said. I didn't ask more. I just drove. We waited until the next roadside motel to get the film developed. The girl at the counter gave me the envelope without a word. One photo. Claire, outside the cabin, standing where I remember her standing. But in the mirror inside that cabin, just past her shoulder, was someone else. The reflection showed a woman. Same height, same clothes, but longer hair. The face was blurry, like the lens had caught her mid-movement. Except the eyes. The eyes were clear and looking straight into the camera. Claire didn't remember taking the shot. We never talked about it again. We kept driving, finished the trip like we planned. But after that night, Claire never sat in the passenger seat without covering the mirror. A small piece of black cloth, taped at the corners, and I never once asked her if she still saw herself in it. Before we step into the next story, if you're still here, still listening, with the lights low, maybe drop a comment. Just tell me where you're listening from. It helps more than you know. All right, let's keep going. My name is James, 27. Every fall, my friends, Gavin, Reese, and I kept an unspoken rule: take one road trip to a place none of us had ever set foot in. It wasn't about sightseeing or escape, just something we agreed on years ago. The wilder, the better, the less mapped, the more real. That year, we picked a patch of high ground out in western Appalachia, a line of forested hills with no trail markers, no lookout points, no names. Gavin was a collector of old paper maps and always said, if it has no name, it's still untouched. We marked out 3 peaks on his chart and gave them makeshift titles: Hill 1, Hill 2, and the final hill. We pitched camp on the first hill by early afternoon. The summit was small, bare, except for a ring of scraggly brush. That's where we found it. A bundle of dry twigs laid out in the shape of a hand. Not carved, not fallen that way by chance. Carefully arranged. Reese spotted it first. Did someone get here before us? He asked, nudging one of the twigs. Gavin just laughed and said, hill people leaving messages. I didn't laugh. There was something deliberate about it that set my teeth on edge. We left it alone. Reese wanted to kick it apart, but Gavin said not to mess with someone's forest shrine. No tracks around it, no signs of recent passing, but I remember the leaves beneath the twigs still looked fresh. Not brittle, as if the hand hadn't been there long. That night we built a fire and joked around like usual, but I couldn't shake the image from my head. That hand, palm up, fingers crooked inward. It didn't feel like something meant to be seen. It felt like something left behind after someone else had already been seen. Ever come across the same thing 3 times in 3 different places, and no one in your group knows where it came from? If that happens, you might not be the one exploring anymore. You might be the one being followed. The next morning, we packed up and headed for Hill 2. It sat higher, steeper, the trail up a mess of mud and leaf rot. Gavin claimed we were the first people up there in years. The air smelled like wet bark, and the whole place felt soft underfoot, like walking across old skins. We found a flat clearing just beneath the crest and dropped our gear. Then we saw it again. Another twig hand. Same size, same shape. This one was set near the edge of the trees, right where we'd walked in. Reese swore under his breath and turned to me. Okay, what the hell? Gavin didn't say anything this time. He squatted down and took a picture, then just stood there, staring at it. The fire burned lower that night. I only half slept. Around midnight, I heard movement. Light steps. Steady, not crashing through brush. more like pacing. When I stepped out and shone my headlamp, nothing moved, only fog drifting low between the trees. By the time we reached the final hill the next day, the wind had picked up. The air had weight to it. Gavin's map showed no trails, and the way up was more a guess than a path. As we climbed, a thin mist clung to the ground like spilled smoke, curling between rocks and roots. The summit was the tallest yet, a hollowed-out knob of land shaped like a shallow bowl. We pitched our tents close to each other, tight to the tree line. Reese said he'd take the outer edge this time, said he wanted to keep watch. With the Brossie, Knowsley, that's when we found the third hand. This one was placed right beside Reese's tent, not at the edge of the hill, not out where someone would approach. It was turned inward, pointing at our camp. Gavin didn't crack a joke. He didn't even speak. I remember telling them, flat out, "We should go. This is a marcher." Reese brushed it off, said it was just one more night and we'd be down in the morning. Maybe back in signal range. Maybe even call for a pickup early. But I didn't argue. But that night, I tucked my folding knife under my pillow. Near midnight, Reese stepped out of his tent. I remember because the light from his flashlight swept across my face. I heard his zipper, heard him mutter something, then footsteps moving off into the dark. 10 minutes passed, then 20, then more. I called his name once. No answer. Gavin unzipped his tent and sat up. "How long's he been gone?" he asked. I didn't answer right away. My mind was locked on one fact. This hill didn't feel like the others. "Wait until morning," I said. "It's too dark. We don't have another light." Ushita Ba and Stefan was not ranges. The wind came back stronger that night. It thrashed against the tent fabric like angry hands. Branches tapped and snapped against the poles. And, underneath it all, I started hearing the footsteps again. Not one loop. Not a pass-by. Pacing. Circling. Like someone, or something, walking the perimeter. At first light, we go searching. No tracks. The winds erased most of the prints. We sweep the area, calling his name. Nothing. Not a shout. Not even the snap of a branch. Then I see it. Lodged in a low patch of grass, just a few steps from the tents. Another twig hand. Smaller. Sharper. Like someone wanted us to see this one. Not a warning. A sign. It had been here. We didn't speak for a long time after that. Gavin just stood there, looking at the small hand in the grass. I told him we should search the area one more time before heading down, in case Reese had fallen or wandered off. He nodded, slow and mechanical, like he wasn't really there. The ground near the tents looked disturbed, as if something heavy had been dragged. A few patches of dirt were softer than the rest. I took our small camping shovel and pressed it into the soil. It sank deeper than I expected. Too deep for just roots. Gavin crouched beside me. "Keep digging," he said. His voice sounded flat. I scraped the dirt away until the blade hit something that wasn't rock. It gave a dull, hollow sound. A white nylon sack came into view, half buried. The knot at the top was tight, tied with an old strip of fabric. I hesitated, my heart pounding in my throat, but Gavin was already tearing it open. Inside was no body, no tools, just a stack of film photos sealed in a thin plastic pouch. We spread them out on the ground. The photos were damp, corners warped. Each one showed a tent, our tent, taken from outside the camp, always from a distance. The angle changed slightly each night, like someone had been moving closer. And the last photo was taken from inside the tent. I saw myself sleeping, turned on my side, mouth slightly open. Gavin was a dark shape beside me. Reese's sleeping bag was empty, and in the edge of the frame, partly hidden by shadow, was a hand holding a flashlight. Thin, long-fingered. Not Gavin's. Not mine. Not Reese's. When you see yourself sleeping, you don't just fear who took the picture. You start to fear what else they did while you never woke up. Gavin started whispering. He didn't look at me, just kept his eyes on the dirt. It was here, he said. All 3 nights. It was right here. There is many one. His hands were trembling. The photos slipped from his fingers. That's when I hear it. A sound just behind us. A dry inhale, slow and rasping, like air dragging through cracked wood. I turn, and it's standing there. Between the trees, a tall, thin shape, bones jutting beneath tight skin, its face covered with something stitched. Old hide, laced with strands of grass. The shoulders are wrong, too high. Its arms hang too long. The air around it seems to hum. It moves toward us. I grab Gavin's arm. He doesn't react at first. Frozen, still muttering to himself. I yank him up, snatch the nearest photos, and we run. Branches snap behind us. Leaves whip past my face. Once, I feel something clutch the back of my shirt. A quick, sharp tug, but I twist away and keep running until my lungs burn. We reach the lower slope sometime after noon. My hands shook as I tried to get a signal. Finally, one bar appeared. I called emergency services. Gavin sat beside me, silent, staring into his palms. It took nearly 2 hours for the rangers and a county officer to meet us. We led them back up the trail. Everything was gone. No tents, no sacks, no photos. Only a small patch of damp ash, still faintly warm, as if something had been burned there minutes before. They logged Reese as missing, said he probably got lost in the fog, maybe fell into one of the sinkholes. But I knew, we both knew, Reese hadn't walked away. He'd been taken. 3 days later, I went to check on Gavin. His apartment was dark, curtains drawn though. It was bright outside. He sat at his desk, pencil in hand, staring straight ahead. Every wall, every inch of the floor and window pane was covered in drawings of the same thing. Hands. Dry, crooked hands. Hundreds of them, all reaching inward. I whispered his name, but he didn't look up. His voice came quiet, dull, like something used up. I didn't draw them, he said. My hand did. When Devon said, I'm telling this not to scare you, but to remind you, if you see someone driving at night with their headlights off, don't assume it's a mistake. My name's Rachel. I was 34 that year, driving home alone on Thanksgiving evening. The interstate was backed up for miles, so I decided to take a longer rural route through the countryside. It seemed simple enough, quieter, faster, easier on the nerves. It was just me and Molly, my dog. She'd been with me almost 4 years. A small brown hound with a habit of sniffing the wind. I always left the window cracked for her so she could breathe the air. She loved car rides. And that day, she sat beside me like she always did, calm and patient. The sky had turned the color of smoke. The light from the setting sun spilled across a wide stretch of land to my left, a field glowing faintly purple with thousands of wildflowers. It looked endless, like the whole earth had been painted lavender. That was when I first noticed the truck. It had been behind me for a while, but I hadn't realized it until the road straightened out. An old pickup, maybe late 90s. Paint faded, grille crooked. Nothing unusual, except the headlights weren't on. Just a dark shape rolling in my rearview mirror. I slowed a little, expecting it to pass. It didn't. It stayed right behind me. Same distance, same rhythm. When I checked again, it was still there, and the headlights were still off. I tried to convince myself it was nothing. Maybe their lights were broken. Maybe they didn't notice. But something about the steadiness of it, the way the truck matched every turn, every rise made the back of my neck prickle. I switched to the right lane for a bit. The truck followed. I turned off onto a smaller road that cut between two fields, thinking maybe it would keep going straight. It didn't. The pickup followed the turn perfectly. Never too close. Never far. Just there. Molly sat up now, uneasy. She pressed her head to my leg and whined. I reached down to pet her, tried to sound calm. It's okay, baby. We're fine. And I think, but my hand was trembling. The more I told myself not to check the mirror, the more I did. Each time I looked up, I swore I saw something. A flicker inside the cab, like the driver was using a phone light or a lighter. It flashed once, then vanished. I couldn't see a face, just a shadow sitting upright, motionless. I turned up the radio to drown the sound of my own breathing. The music felt wrong in that silence. The road was narrow now, gravel spitting under the tires. The purple field stretched on both sides, fading into the fog. I didn't know where it ended. The truck was still there. I thought about pulling over. Maybe I'd been overreacting. Maybe it would pass if I stopped. So I eased off the gas, slowing just enough to see what it would do. The truck slowed too. No headlights. No turn signal. Just matching me again. That was when my stomach dropped. I pressed the pedal down. The truck pressed too. My heart started pounding in my ears, drowning out the sound of the radio. I tried to breathe steady, but my mouth had gone dry. The road ahead curved sharply to the right, leading toward a small dirt lane between fences. I took the turn fast. Tires, spitting stones. The truck swung after me, tires squealing. It didn't lose ground. Not once. And then suddenly, it accelerated. In a blink, it was beside me, metal shrieking as it veered into my lane. The truck cut in front, blocking the road. I slammed the brakes. The car fishtailed and stopped hard, just short of hitting it. The driver's door opened. A man stepped out. Medium build, dark shirt. He didn't say a word. He didn't move closer, didn't raise his hands, didn't even look around. He just stood there in front of his truck, eyes fixed on my windshield, watching. I remember the way the air felt, cold, still, like everything else had stopped breathing. Molly growled low, but I couldn't move. My hand hovered over the gear shift, every muscle locked. That's when I realized the truck's engine was still running, but the headlights were still off. He hadn't turned them on. Not once. I slammed the gear into reverse and hit the gas. The tires spun, but I didn't care. I was backing blind, just trying to get away from the man still standing in front of his truck. He didn't flinch, didn't chase, just kept watching me. The rear wheels dropped suddenly, a sharp jolt as the car tilted back. We'd gone off the road, rear bumper sinking into the edge of the field. I tapped the pedal again. Mud kicked up. The tires spun in place. Molly was barking now, claws scraping the seat. I threw open the door and grabbed her under one arm. She squirmed, but I held on and jumped down into the field. I didn't look back. I just ran. The field was thicker than it looked. The flowers came up to my knees, scratchy and sharp at the edges. I had no direction, only one thought: get away, farther, deeper, out of reach. Behind me, I heard him moving. His steps were heavy, not fast, not stumbling, just steady. He wasn't calling out. He wasn't shouting threats or trying to talk. He was following like someone who already knew where I would go. I pushed through the brush toward the farthest line of trees I could see. My legs caught on roots. My breath got shallow. Molly kept squirming, so I let her down, hoping she'd run ahead. She darted forward and disappeared into the grass. Then I slipped. My foot caught on something. I went down hard, elbow scraping a rock, knees grinding into the dirt. I scrambled up, calling her name. Molly. The says prophet mated. Nothing. Only the sound of footsteps, I turned. He is right there, only a few yards away. His shirt is soaked. His face, I still can't describe it. Not angry, not wild, just blank, focused. In his hand, he holds the broken leash. Molly's leash, torn where the clip used to be. I grab my backpack off my shoulder and throw it straight at him. He lifts one arm, more out of reflex than defense. Then I run. I run so hard I can barely feel my legs. Branches slap my face. The sky spins. My lungs are burning, but I do not stop. I don't know how far I make it, just that eventually, I see light. A road. Not the one I came from, but something paved. Faint headlights through the trees. I crash through the last of the field and stumble toward it, waving my arms. A car slows. I fall to my knees. They said I was lucky. The man never followed beyond the edge of the field. The local police searched, but there was no truck. No license plates captured. No cameras on those roads. I told them about Molly, how she ran ahead, how I lost her. They didn't find her either. For weeks, I drove that route again and again, calling her name. I left food. I left a blanket. Nothing came back. Now, I never let anyone sit in the back seat. It stays empty, like she might still come back, and I need to save her a place. And sometimes, not always, but sometimes, when I drive at night and glance in the mirror, I swear I see her eyes, right where she used to sit. My name's Tyler. I was 26 when it happened. Emily and I had just left a wedding up in the western highlands of Appalachia, the kind of mountain town where the roads feel like they were carved into the earth with a spoon. We didn't stay the night, decided to drive straight home, figuring it would be easier than heading back to the hotel in the morning. Emily offered to take the wheel since it was my car and I'd had a few drinks at the reception. I wasn't drunk, just tired. We stopped to get gas maybe 20 minutes into the drive. While I was inside grabbing snacks, Emily stayed by the car. When I came back out, she looked off. She pointed at the rear window and said, "Why is there a 31 written on the back?" I walked around. She wasn't seeing things. Someone had drawn a number. A very clear 31, in the thin layer of dust on the rear windshield. The kind of mark you'd only spot at the right angle, in fading light. I wiped it off with the sleeve of my hoodie, trying to laugh it off. We didn't talk much about it after that, just one of those weird little things. Maybe a kid at the wedding had done it. Maybe it had been there longer than we realized. But the next morning, it showed up again. Same number, same spot. Same exact handwriting, like someone had traced the original. We were stopped outside a diner off Route 12, and Emily had gone out to grab something from the trunk. She called me out with this flat voice, like she already knew what I'd find. Neither of us had touched the back of the car since the night before. No one had. The spot was too high for a child, too clean to be random. The number was just there, waiting. We both got quiet after that. Something about it felt wrong, but neither of us wanted to say it out loud. We got back on the road, heading downhill now, through a series of turns where the trees broke apart and left long, empty stretches. The wind picked up. The air felt colder than it should have. That's when I noticed the SUV. It was behind us, barely a car length away. Gray, dull paint, no license plate. I thought maybe it was a coincidence at first. Someone, local, maybe even another wedding guest. But it didn't pass. It didn't back off either. Every time I adjusted speed, it adjusted too. Emily noticed before I said anything. She grabbed her phone, leaned sideways, and aimed it toward the back window. I remember her pausing, tilting her head. Then she screamed. Her scream froze me. I looked in the mirror, expecting to see the SUV right on us. But what I saw didn't make sense. It was our car, same color, Same dent near the license plate. Same sticker on the bumper. Except I wasn't driving it. Through the windshield of that SUV, I saw me and Emily, sitting in the same positions, the same clothes. Except the me inside that car wasn't reacting. He was just holding the wheel, eyes forward, like a photograph that had come to life. Emily was crying, hitting my arm, saying, "Tyler, it's us. It's us in there." I wanted to say something rational, something that would break the spell of it, but my throat closed. Then the other version of me, the one in that car, turned its head slightly, like it was looking straight at me. I slammed the brakes. The SUV swerved around us, dust spraying into the air, and took the next turn hard, down a road that didn't exist on the map. When the dust cleared, it was gone. Just gone. Emily was shaking so hard she dropped her phone between the seats. I could still hear her whispering. It was me in there. I saw myself. We made it to a rest stop a few miles later. It was small, just one gas pump, a vending machine, and a bathroom at the back of the building. But there were lights, and there were people. That felt like safety. I bought 2 cups of coffee, tried to steady my breathing. Emily washed her face and sighed. When she came out, we sat on the wooden bench outside, wrapped in silence. She told me what she'd seen again. Every detail. The way the copy of herself moved. Stiff, slow, like someone pretending to be human. The way it turned its head at the same time mine did. I forced a smile. He said, maybe the reflection from her phone made it look strange. She didn't argue, but I could tell she didn't believe me. A woman came out from the building then. White hair, small frame, wearing a blue uniform jacket. She smiled kindly and asked if we were all right. I said we'd just had a rough drive and needed a break. She nodded, handed Emily a paper towel, and said softly, "Drive careful. It gets colder up there at night." Her voice felt warm. For the first time since it started, I felt the weight in my chest ease. Emily even smiled back. We both thanked her. After a while, we got up to leave. I turned around to thank the woman again, but she was gone. I went inside to ask about her. The man behind the counter looked confused. "Old woman, there's no one else here tonight," he said. "Just me and 2 others. We didn't see anyone talk to you." "That's never." Emily came out of the restroom right then, her face pale, eyes wide. She didn't even look at me when she said it. "The mirror," she whispered. I couldn't see myself in it. And he faced. We drove the rest of the way in silence. I don't think either of us looked into a mirror again that night. When we finally got home, we went through the photos from the wedding. Emily wanted proof of something normal, something real. But in one of the wide shots taken near the end of the reception, you could see it, way in the back, hidden behind a line of trees. A gray SUV, parked, still, watching. No plates, no driver, just sitting there, waiting. I still don't know what the number 31 meant. But from that day on, we stopped taking photos of the back of the car. At night, when the glass turns dark, sometimes I think I can see numbers written in it again. Faint, backward, like something trying to count down. That one hit a little different. If these stories mean something to you, leave a like, subscribe, or share this video with someone who'd stay up to hear it too. And if you've got a true horror story of your own, my email's in the description. Now, story 6. My name is Daniel. I was 41 when this happened, though sometimes it feels like it never really stopped. I've always been one of those people who never trusted GPS. No phones, no apps, no digital maps. I collect paper maps, the kind that smell like dust and fold wrong no matter how carefully you try. There's something about getting lost on purpose that made me feel more alive. Every fall, I'd pick a new stretch of back road through the Appalachians and see where it took me. Just me, an old 2-door, and a map I'd usually photocopied and marked by hand. This year was no different. Until I had stopped for lunch at a trailhead, just off a ridge road I hadn't driven before. When I spread the map out on my hood, I saw something that made me pause. There was a new road drawn on it, a thin pencil line winding west off the main route. The style was mine. Same weight, same pressure, even the same shorthand marks I always use for turns and slopes. But I hadn't drawn it. I stared at it for a long time, trying to recall if maybe I'd done it weeks ago and forgotten. That happens sometimes when you plan too many routes at once. But I couldn't shake the feeling. That line wasn't there yesterday. Still, it was there now. A perfect loop, leading west through an area that looked like pure forest. No name, no trails, no towns. Just one label in tiny handwriting near the curve, Hollow Ridge. 5 miles. I hesitated. Then I folded the map. He started the engine and turned the wheel west. Maybe I was being foolish, but that feeling, the pull of somewhere new, somewhere hidden, it always won. The road turned to gravel within 15 minutes. Cell signal dropped out somewhere around the second bend. I glanced at the sky. The sun looked lower than it should have. I checked the time. Barely an hour had passed. Trees pressed in from both sides. The gravel road narrowed into what felt more like a wide trail. I slowed to avoid hitting rocks or potholes. Then I saw it. A wooden sign, half rotted, nailed to a leaning post. Hollow Ridge. 5 miles. I'd already driven that far. But the sign made it feel like I'd just started. I kept going. At the next fork, I turned left, then left again. I marked a tree with my pocket knife, just in case. 10 minutes later, I passed the same tree. I know it was mine. Same notch, same angle, still fresh. I tried another route, slower, more careful. Then it happened again. I found myself at the same curve, same cluster of boulders, my own tire tracks, fresh in the dirt. It didn't matter which direction I turned. Every path curved back on itself. By now, the sun had dropped below the trees, casting long shadows that looked too still. I pulled the car to a stop near a small clearing and turned the engine off. For the first time all day, I felt like I was being watched. I unfolded the map. The new road had changed. What was once a loop now curled tighter, circling the spot I had parked. The line was no longer clean. It trembled, like someone had drawn it with shaking hands. At the center of that circle, written in my own handwriting, were 3 words I had never written. Do not continue. I decided not to test whatever was waiting past that warning. The sun was gone. I didn't want to risk driving deeper into the dark with no bearings. So I turned the car around and started looking for somewhere to wait out the night. That was when I saw it. Off to the right, maybe 50 yards into the trees. A cabin. Small. Slanted roof. The door was slightly open. No lights inside. But the shape of a chimney told me it had a stove. It felt like a gift. Or a trap. But I was too tired to care. I parked just off the trail and walked in. Flashlight in one hand. The cabin was old, but not abandoned. There was a table, a cot, and a few shelves lined with dry cans. Dust, yes, but not cobwebs. Someone had been here, not long ago. I closed the door and lit the oil lamp hanging on the wall. The glow flickered across old wood and worn floorboards. I built a small fire in the stove with the kindling already stacked near the hearth. Something about the routine helped. I took off my boots and sat at the table. Pulled out the map. Started tracing my route backward, trying to figure out where I'd gone wrong. I didn't hear the paper behind me until it moved. A soft sound, like a page turning. I turned around. There, on the other side of the room, lying on the bed, half folded, was another map. Same size, same paper, same area. but it had been folded differently, the creases going the wrong way. And it wasn't mine. The handwriting on it was sharper, heavier, like whoever drew it pressed down too hard, like they were angry or scared. At the bottom of that map was a line written in tight, slanted script. "If you can read this, I'm sorry." I picked it up. The paper felt cold, damp at the edges. When I turned it over, I saw fingerprints on the back. Smudged, dark, like someone had picked it up with dirty hands. I stepped outside. The trees swayed in the wind, silent. Then I saw it. A car, parked just beyond the clearing. Same make as mine, same model, same dent on the front left panel. But that was not my car. The license plate was wrong. The stickers were wrong. And the headlights were on. Engine running. Doors closed. Then I saw someone in the driver's seat. Just a silhouette at first. Head down, shoulders tense. Not moving. Not reacting. I stepped closer, and they begin to lift their head. Slowly. I run. I don't remember getting back to the road. But when I opened my eyes, it was daylight. My real car was there, parked along a shoulder where gravel met the paved road. The map was gone. No cabin. No second car. No second map. Just the leaves. And a silence that sounded like it had been holding its breath all night. I have not traveled since. Not for fun. Not alone. Not with paper. I still collect maps, though they arrive in the mail sometimes, even when I haven't ordered them. Same paper stock, same fold, same feel. And sometimes, when I hold one up to the light, I think I see a new road forming, faint and curved, as if someone is still drawing it from the other side. My name is Melissa. I was 36 at the time. Just 3 months out of a divorce, I had tried my best to handle quietly. Life wasn't stable yet. Bills piled up, routines frayed. But I had promised my son one thing. Every weekend, no matter what, I'd drive out and bring him home from school. That weekend, I got held back at work. The city lights were long behind me by the time I passed the first hill on the drive into Appalachia. The road was familiar. I had taken it dozens of times, and I had enough gas, had eaten, and figured I'd make it straight through. Around the second hill, my phone buzzed. Just a light vibration, nothing loud, but the screen lit up with a prompt from the map app. Nearby rest stop. Suggested break. Why go? Base. I ignored it. I never needed breaks on that road. Not 10 minutes later, it buzzed again, this time with a soft chime. I checked. No new message. No alert showing. But the map had refreshed itself. Still, I kept driving. But when I crested the third hill, I saw a weathered sign by the roadside. Faded paint. Crooked lettering. Gas. Coffee. 0. 5 mile. The station sat tucked in a dip beneath the ridge. Small. Old. The neon above the windows glowed a dull red, flickering now and then. Only one other car was parked outside, its windows fogged. I figured I'd stop, use the restroom, maybe stretch my legs. The place looked quiet, not sketchy. No reason to be nervous. Not really. But something felt off as soon as I stepped out of the car. At the vending machines near the entrance, I spotted a corkboard, dusty and yellowing. Ads for car washes, lost dogs, old sales, and one sheet of paper, curled at the corners, with jagged red handwriting. Do not stop here if you are alone. I stepped back, heart kicking harder in my chest. I turned, instinctively scanning the glass for movement. That's when I saw her. A woman stood behind the main window, brown coat, pale face. She smiled and lifted one hand in a small wave. I hesitated. Then I opened the door and stepped inside. There was no clerk, no music, just the buzz of the overhead light and the quiet sound of coffee dripping into 2 paper cups. The woman stood by the counter, holding one of the cups in her hands. She didn't look surprised to see me. Her voice was soft when she spoke. Long way to drive at night, especially alone. I used to be a single mother too. Night. I nodded slowly. I didn't feel afraid. Not exactly. More like I had entered the wrong room of a dream. The kind where everything looks normal until you realize it isn't. I sat across from her at the small counter table. My phone vibrated again, low against the inside of my coat. I checked. No call. No message. Just that quiet hum against my ribs. Like a warning I didn't know how to read. I told her I needed to use the restroom and then had to get back on the road. She smiled gently and said, "I'll watch your bag. Don't worry." In XX, I didn't remember bringing a bag inside, but I nodded anyway. Something about her tone made it hard to refuse. The hallway to the restroom was cold and narrow. One of the ceiling lights flickered, casting brief shadows that felt longer than they should have been. Inside, the mirror was streaked with water, and the motion sensor light buzzed once before staying on. I turned on the faucet and let the water run over my hands. When I looked up into the mirror, I froze. There was a photo taped to the inside of the glass. Not on the wall, inside the mirror itself, as if trapped beneath the surface. It was a picture of my son, his school uniform, his backpack. It was taken that morning. Beneath it, in the same red handwriting I'd seen on the corkboard outside, were 4 words. "You're already too late." I backed away from the sink. My breath came fast and shallow. I opened the stall doors one by one, checking them out of instinct. Empty. I turned off the light, then turned it back on. The photo was still there. I burst out of the restroom, calling my son's name without even thinking. Not loud, not screaming, just that quiet panic that comes from knowing you won't like the answer. The station was empty. The woman was gone. No sound, no motion. Just 2 cups of coffee still steaming on the counter, side by side. The one meant for me had a small lipstick print near the rim. I don't wear lipstick. I ran outside. The wind had picked up. My car sat exactly where I left it, but my hands were shaking so badly I could barely get the key into the ignition. The engine turned over on the first try. And that's when I saw the GPS screen. The map was back online, but the destination had changed. It wasn't set to my son's school. It wasn't my home address either. It simply read, House 441, Red Hill Valley. I had never typed that. I didn't even know that place existed. The route line was bright red now. The whole interface looked different. Older. Wrong. Like it belonged to another device entirely. I tried to cancel the route. Nothing happened. I pulled the power cord. Still glowing. I shut off the car. It stayed lit. I turned off my phone, pulled the battery out, even disconnected the GPS entirely. When I turned it back on again, the route was still there. I drove. I didn't look at the signs. I didn't check the time. I just kept my hand steady on the wheel until the station was far behind me and the sky began to shift. I don't remember the turns, just the road, and the ache in my chest that stayed with me long after the engine cooled. Since that night, every time I open the map app, no matter where I am, there is always one address at the top of my recent destinations list. 441 Red Hill Valley. Open 24/7. And I still don't know who taped that photo of my son inside the mirror, or how they got it. We were 4 friends in our final year of college. Aaron, Jess, Tom, and me. My name's Riley. That spring, right before graduation, we planned one last road trip together. Nothing fancy. Just a few days out in the Appalachian backroads before we all went our separate ways. We wanted something off the grid. Something not on travel blogs or TikTok reels. So when we saw a stretch of road on Google Maps listed only as unnamed road, 2 miles, we all kind of looked at each other and said, yeah, that's the one. And then not about out now. It was late evening when we turned onto it. The trees thickened around us, and the sky started dimming faster than we expected. But the moment we hit the slope, something happened that made all of us go dead quiet. The streetlights came on, one by one, in perfect rhythm with the car's movement, just slightly ahead of us, as if lighting our path with precision. Tom laughed nervously. Feels like we just drove into a sci-fi movie. Jess turned the music up, probably to shake the tension. It helped for a moment. We started chatting again, teasing Aaron for driving, like someone trying to impress a ghost. Then we saw it. The road ahead. Empty. No more lights. Just a stretch of dark curling into the trees. Aaron slowed down. Then, just to be safe, tried to turn around. That was when the lights behind us began to go out. Not all at once. Not randomly. But in sequence, exactly how they had come on. Each bulb popped off like it was being swallowed. First, the one farthest back. Then the next, and the next. As if something was moving through the light. Following us? Aaron whispered. Okay, that's not funny anymore. And shifted into reverse. The wheels spun on loose gravel, and we felt the back of the car tilt slightly. The road had started to slope. Jess turned off the music. No one spoke. Then we heard it. A sound behind us. Not an animal. Not a branch. It was sharp and metallic, like steel, dragging over stone. Slow, deliberate, the kind of sound that makes your spine lock in place. We couldn't see anything behind the car, just the last light still flickering above us. Aaron hit the brake. The car jolted and stopped under the final working lamp. We sat there, frozen. Then Jess looked into the rearview mirror and made a choking sound, halfway between a gasp and a scream. She pointed but couldn't speak. The light above us flickers once, then dies. Aaron tried to restart the car. The engine turned but didn't catch. He muttered something under his breath and tried again. Jess held her phone up, waving it around for signal, but the screen stayed blank. No bars, no data, no map. Tom unbuckled and opened the glove compartment, looking for the flashlight we always kept there. I checked mine too. No signal either. Outside the car, the dark was thick, almost heavy. When we looked back through the windows, the road behind us was gone. I don't mean it was just dark. I mean it looked different, like the road had been swallowed. No reflectors, no outline, no signs. Only the rustling sound of something moving through the trees, closer than before. Then the engine came back to life. Aaron nearly cried out. He put the car into gear, and we rolled forward at a crawl. No one told him where to go. There was only one direction left. After about 300 yards, the road widened slightly. A small pull-off, maybe meant for trucks or emergency stops. We parked there, still inside the circle of what felt like nothing. Jess turned the music back on, loud, and it helped. A little. Tom passed around some snacks from his pack. I think we all laughed at something stupid I said, maybe just out of relief. We kept saying the same thing over and over. That was weird. And not does not thing. It's Van Selvens. That couldn't be real. There was no. It must have been a power surge. But after a while, I reached out and turned the music down. I just wanted to hear nothing. That's when we noticed every light around us had gone out. The silence was deep, not peaceful, not gentle, but empty, like the whole road had stopped breathing. Then came the knock. A single tap from the back of the car, not hard, just sharp enough to be unmistakable. We all froze. Another knock, then another, perfectly spaced, like someone tapping to count seconds. No one moved. No one spoke. Aaron opened his door slowly, stepped out, and walked around to the back. His footsteps crunched softly on gravel. He paused, then lifted the trunk. There was nothing inside, just our emergency kit. A blanket, a flashlight, a single granola bar no one had touched. But on the inside of the trunk lid were fresh scratch marks. Thin, sharp, curved slightly downward, like someone had tried to claw their way out. No one said anything. We got back in the car. Aaron drove without asking where, and none of us looked back. Tom doesn't drive at night anymore, and if we pass under those old yellow lights, the kind that hum gently in small towns, he pulls over and waits for someone else to go first. When I asked him why, months later, he didn't even look at me when he said it. Because that color knows my name, Asa. I'm really glad you've stayed with me this far. Before we move on to the next story, don't forget to subscribe and turn on the bell so you won't miss any of our new videos every single day. Now then, let's continue. My name is Nathan. I was 37 that year, still working full-time as a dealer in old Appalachian antiques. I'd driven every back road between West Virginia and Tennessee chasing rare pieces. But that trip started with something different. It was a wooden statue. Small, hand-carved, no taller than my forearm. A man with crossed arms, long face, sunken chest. It looked like something pulled straight from the 1800s, and I picked it up cheap from a forgotten auction house in West Virginia. My buyer lived somewhere along the Tennessee border, deep in the hills. The sky was gray that morning, thick with fog curling off the mountain crests. The road was narrow but clear. My plan was simple: drive the figure out, get paid, and be home by midnight. That was before the sign hit the windshield. It came out of nowhere. A slab of wood, wide, dark, warped, dropped from above and slammed right against the glass. I hit the brakes hard, heart jumping into my throat. It didn't shatter the windshield, but the weight of it made the whole frame groan. I got out of the car slowly. The road was empty. No houses. No wind. Just trees heavy with mist and that sign, lying crooked on the hood of my car. I pulled it off and leaned it upright. The letters were carved, faded from age but still legible. Harwell Cemetery. I blinked it. There was no cemetery marked on my map. No mention in any route I had checked. This wasn't a tourist town or a family stop, but the sign looked freshly dug. Wet soil clung to the bottom edge, as if it had just been pulled from the ground. I moved it to the shoulder and got back in the car. The engine wouldn't start. I turned the key once, twice. Nothing. I tried again. A slow whine, then a cough. On the fourth try, it finally turned over. I sat for a moment, catching my breath. The statue was still on the back seat, wrapped in cloth. But the longer I drove, the more I felt like someone was sitting behind me. Every time I checked the mirror, the seat cushion looked lower, like there was weight on it. A quiet, steady pressure. I didn't stop. I didn't say anything. I just gripped the wheel and kept moving, praying the road would stay straight and the shadows would stay in the trees. The house matched the address exactly. That part, at least, was right. But it wasn't a home anymore. The yard was wild, fenced with fallen boards and creeping vines. The front door stood open. No lights inside. The moment I stepped in, the air felt wrong. Still, but not empty. Dust coated everything. Spider webs stretched across the corners like gauze. But what caught my eye was the thing in the middle of the living room floor. A statue, just like mine. Same pose, same carved lines. Except this one was burning. There was no flame, no smoke, but the wood glowed faintly, like coals pressed just beneath the surface. It sizzles without heat, moves without fire. The scent in the room wasn't smoke. It was cedar, dry, splitting. And I realized something then. The statue is mine, the one I brought, but it is no longer wrapped. It is no longer where I left it. I didn't think, I just ran. Out the door, through the yard, my feet slipping on wet leaves. The air was thick, hard to breathe. By the time I reached the car, my hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped the keys. I yanked open the door and froze. The back seat was empty. The statue was gone. Only a strip of pale wood lay across the leather, about the length of a forearm. When I picked it up, I realized it wasn't just a piece of scrap. It had writing on it, carved rough with something sharp. The grooves were still damp, smelling faintly of sap. It said, "Nathan, delivery complete." My stomach turned. I dropped it onto the gravel and slammed the door shut. The car started on the first try this time. The headlights cut through the fog like a blade, showing me nothing but gray and trees. I pressed the gas and didn't look in the mirror. I just kept driving, mile after mile, until the first cluster of lights appeared ahead. A town, a motel, civilization. I pulled into the lot, parked under the canopy, and shut off the engine. My hands finally stopped shaking when I turned to grab my overnight bag. Then I saw the trunk. It was slightly open, just an inch, like something inside had pushed upward. I should have left it alone, but I didn't. When I lifted it, the smell of old wood hit me first. No statue, no plank, just the dark shape of the trunk liner, scratched deep with thin lines. At first, I thought it was random, but as I leaned closer, the marks formed into shapes, the curve of fingers, the outline of a hand, and within the lines, carved over and over, one word repeated until the wood splintered. "Nathan, Nathan, Nathan." I backed away, slamming the trunk shut, stumbling into the cold air. My breath came in bursts. I didn't know whether to scream or pray. I stayed at that motel until morning, never sleeping, just sitting by the window watching the parking lot. When I finally got the courage to leave, there was no sign of the carvings. The trunk looked clean, as if it had been replaced. I drove straight home, sold the car a week later, and stopped dealing in antiques altogether. But sometimes, when I drive at night and the road dips just enough for the wind to change, I hear it again, a soft rhythm beneath the floorboards. A knock, then another, like someone gently carving wood from the underside of the world. And I know it is still working on a name. Next time, maybe not mine. My name's Robert. My wife Carol and I had been retired for a few years. Every Thanksgiving, we made it a tradition to take a short road trip. Just the two of us. No phones. No cities. Just the open roads of the southern Appalachians. No real plan. Just a tank of gas, some sandwiches, and time. We always preferred the quiet backroads, where the turns were sharp and the air felt clean. That year was no different. I remember it was just past 7 p.m. when we veered off the main road, heading toward a gas station I'd seen marked on our paper map. GPS had already cut out, but we were used to that. I kept the radio low, scanning the tree line for signs. The signal bars had dropped to 0 right before we took the turn. Carol leaned forward slightly, double-checking the route. I reached for the glove compartment, pulled out the folded map, and said, "No worries. We've still got this. There we self." She smiled, but something in her expression told me she was a little uneasy. Then we saw the first sign, a weathered wooden board planted at an angle in the dirt, Doak 51. It looked old, barely reflective, but I figured it was just a marker for this particular descent. I didn't give it much thought, just kept driving. But maybe 10 minutes later, Carol touched the window and said, "Didn't we just pass that?" And so, I looked where she was pointing. Same sign, Same lettering. Same lean. I frowned. Probably just multiple signs for visibility. I said, but in my stomach, something started to stir. The third time, we both went quiet. It wasn't a similar sign. It was the exact same one. The tree behind it was crooked in the same way. Even the mound of leaves on the ground looked like it hadn't moved an inch. And I knew for a fact we hadn't turned around. I pressed the gas a little harder. The car dipped and rose with the curves, and the forest thickened on either side. No cross streets. No driveways. Just the same stretch of dimpled asphalt stretching ahead like a loop. Carol scanned the roadside, and I could feel her tension now. I kept talking, saying maybe it was just a nickname for a longer stretch of road. Maybe the GPS would come back, but I could hear my voice thin out at the end of each sentence. Something was wrong. The road was repeating itself. The pavement turned bumpier, littered with dry leaves that shifted like skin under the tires. The trees pressed closer. Every so often, I checked the dashboard clock. It had been over 20 minutes since we left the main road, and we were still going downhill. That's when we saw the wooden post. It was tall and narrow, stuck deep into the dirt just off the right shoulder. A red X was painted on it, thick, uneven, and fresh. Carol noticed it too. Her hand reached for the seatbelt, tightening it across her chest. Before I could ask her what she thought, the car dipped sharply to one side. We hit a rut or a pothole. I couldn't tell. I pulled over fast and killed the engine. One of the rear tires had sunk partially into a soft patch near the base of the post. The rim had caught something. I opened the trunk and started pulling out the tools. Didn't say much. I didn't want to spook Carol. As I bent to check the wheel again, I heard her voice from behind me. "Robert," she said, low and tight. I turned. She wasn't looking at me. She was looking across the road. Two men were standing there. I didn't say a word at first. I just stood upright, tools still in my hand, and looked where Carol was looking. Across the road, maybe 15 yards out, were two men standing just past the edge of the tree line. Not walking, not talking, just standing. They weren't dressed like hikers. One of them had something dark slung over his shoulder, a coat or maybe a bag. I couldn't tell. Their faces weren't visible in the dark, but I could feel them looking straight at us. I called out, more from instinct than anything else. "Hey there," I said. No answer. I felt the skin tighten on the back of my neck. Carol hadn't moved, not even to blink. I turned and finished bolting the spare tire on, hands fumbling, dropping the wrench twice. Every sound felt sharper than it should have been. Even the rustle of leaves sounded like footsteps that never got closer. When I finally slammed the trunk shut, I looked back across the road. They were gone. No sound. No shifting brush. Just empty woods. I walked quickly to the driver's side, opened the door, and got in. Carol was still staring at the spot where they had been. She didn't speak until I started the engine. "Where did they go?" she asked, voice small. I didn't answer. The car creaked as I turned us back down the slope. I checked the mirrors. Then again, no sign of movement behind us. No headlights. No figures. No more signs saying Dock 51. It was as if the road had let us go, or let us think it had. We made it back to the main highway 40 minutes later, riding in silence. We told the kids when we got home, half laughing like it was just a strange night. They rolled their eyes, said we probably got turned around or let our nerves get the better of us. Maybe they were right, but I never showed them the photo. Carol had taken it while waiting. One quick picture of the back of the car, with the wooden post still stuck in the ground behind it. The red X was clear. The trees were sharp, but there were no men in the frame. What there was, faint, almost an afterthought, was a silhouette in the reflection of our back window. Tall, misshapen, pressed close enough to fog the glass. I deleted the picture from my phone. But Carol, She kept it. Thank you for staying with me until the very end. I truly mean that. If you enjoyed these stories, leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already. That way, you won't miss the next ones. And once again, thank you for walking this dark road with me tonight.